Hi folks, Tom McGrath here with my son Daniel. I wanted to talk a bit about the learning through comparisons concept I've been using for the last few years teaching. I wanted to show you, based on one technique or solving one problem, let's say, with a variety of tools, understanding how you have to modify your use of that tool depending on its strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so let's get started. All right, the technique we're going to work on is against the grab and stab, specifically the grab, the first motion of that. So if Dan has a knife in his right hand, he comes at me with the left to grab, I parry, getting around his arm. I'm not forcefully trying to go through his arm. Our first concept in anti-hand versus knife work is maybe the guy's bigger and stronger than you, so you get around his arm without trying to assume you can power through it, and then come up and get a hit. The first one we show is parry and go in and hit into the head with a hammer fist. So you can get behind the guy and deal with him from there. It's a lot safer, right? This comes from our knife to knife work. So if I have a knife, let's say in ice pick grip, and actually I'm going to give Dan another knife. So now he's fighting double knife, right? Let's say I have double knife too. Says no knife in his hand. As he comes in with that initial straight shot, I'm going to parry that and come right in and hit, and then get behind him and deal with him that way, right? In ice pick grip, we're coming in utilizing the ice pick because if I need to parry down and get out, I can. In hammer grip, I'll borrow this. He comes in. I'm still parrying with the arm, and now I'll get a slash instead of a thrust and try to get to his back. Now, all these are predicated on the idea that I'm a right-handed person and my right hand has the best power shot. However, I was talking with some of the guys that did boxing, and I said, if I was training Mike Tyson with this, guy comes in, bang, he'd come in with his left hand and give a hook to the body, and that would just be enough of a devastating shot to drop the guy by itself. So you kind of want to see where the best tool is. If I'm fighting someone taller than myself, maybe when he comes in, I parry, and maybe I do an eye jab to the eyes as I get in, because I can hit pretty high to the eyes. Get an eye jab just enough to distract him. I'm ducking behind his body, basically use his body as cover since it's really hard for him to stab through his body. And then get behind slap his ears. Again, I can slap pretty high to the ears, grab a handful of eye socket, drive a knee, step on his knee, kick him in the ankle, drive a knee into his coccyx or thigh and drop him down from there. So you make adjustments for what tools you have, what strengths you have relative to the opponent. My teacher, who had a tremendously hard slap with either hand, would often come in on situations like this, parry and go in and just slap the breadbasket with a palm strike, and that would drop the guy all by itself, even though he's right hand dominant. Now, let's show you a couple of different tools here. You notice when I was dealing with ice pick grip against that hand, I'm in here using the full blade of my arm and then a hard hammer fist here. And the idea of that, I show both on, is this is the primary parry for a straight shot. Happens to be a lead grab, but if he comes in with the right hand, straight shot, I'll go on the outside there and do the same thing on that side. So we have the concept of ice pick grip is hammer fist. I have a knife in hammer grip. It's going to be a slash to the eyes and come in, right? And you notice all of these are using my forearm to parry. One is a big surface, obviously, a big surface for the lower arm. And I have a lot of margin for error in terms of moving it around. You start going up in knives, you start to say, okay, when do I start using the blade to do the work for me? So, like a little lightweight K-bar style blade, for me this is little, it's not a sword. I would not come with the edge with this to try to do the work, because you have to measure the mass of your weapon versus the mass of his hand and your ability to deliver force to get around this, right? So if I need to push this out of the way, I can. in the beginning, we start with the preface of he's bigger and stronger than me, so I'm just getting around it. They gives you the most speed as well. If I try to just cut this with a lightweight fighter, I'll get skin down the bone. This is the outer edge of his form I'm attacking. So you know what? I probably will not cut through the arm or break the arm, and it can still deliver his grab and then just deliver his stab, right? So from here, a lightweight knife like this, I will still treat it using my forearm as the prime mover and the prime piece of cover against his forearm. Now, if you move up to, let's say, a Bowie knife with that weighs about a pound, now you're getting into the border of, all right, maybe I can use this blade. Part of that equation, though, is not only the weight of the blade, but your power in using it and where that's balanced. There's some buoys that weigh a pound, but the point of percussion is pretty low down in the blade. The point where you get the most cut, and because it has a long swedge. If it has a short swedge where you have a lot of chopping power towards the tip, and you're proficient with it, and you have time, you may go in and use that blade to hit, and then, you know, with enough power here that you're gonna at least break the bone. And that should buy you enough time to get your hit into the eyes, which should buy you enough time to get behind him and the fight that way. Now you start getting into a 1.5 pound kukri, and all these trainers are plastic, by the way. There's not a real one. You start getting into a kukri, 1.5 pound kukri. Now you're really getting into something that, you know, can at least break the bone, if not take his arm completely off and, you know, destroy the head, or whatever way we do that. So now you're really getting to something that says, you know what, I'm better off, you know, attacking this directly. Another reason I'm attacking it directly with the blade and not doing the forearm parry is if this has a lot of weight and he's strong, and I come in, and especially if he catches me, right? Or even if he doesn't catch me, just physically strong, right? I go to hit, well, what happens to that momentum of that kukri? It goes forward, and I might, under the stress of the fight, end up losing that kukri, or at least not getting enough of a hit on him that he can power through this and come in with his stab. So not only when he comes in can I deliver with the blade, the heavy blade, but probably should deliver to target with heavy blade so I don't wind up losing momentum or losing the weapon. Similar idea here with the heavy axe. Again, this is plastic, it's not a real axe. Definitely has the weight, has the timing. I should have the timing with this. So if it's tight and close, you know, either 2 hands on the handle, or if that's too short, double force, I should be able to hit this and knock this out of the way, sufficient to buy me time to come in, you know, hit the head, and then, you know, convince him to drop his weapon. So I want you to study this and realize there is a core element, what I call the training wheels phase, very common at Pekiti-Tirsia, where you have one technique that is like the trunk of the tree. It's the core element. It teaches you what to do if you're surprised. A lot of times we try worst case scenario as our first technique, meaning that empty hand versus weapon would be worst case scenario. And you're trying to get to your preferred footwork spot, which would be behind him, less likely to have to deal with his right hand weapon. From that core element, you start going to variations. Okay, what happens if, and the let's say the core hit, the trunk of the tree on this, would be hitting somebody who's close to the same height as me, right? Then you start exploring options. Okay, what happens if he's taller than me? What happens if he's shorter than me? What happens if I have a bad guy to my preferred escape route, which in this case is to my right? Then I need to do the same technique to my left. Which of the 3 basic angles we have, forward, side, or rear, would I prefer moving against a guy with that in his right hand? So you start to branch out into variations. So the problem I see a lot in people who only do seminars is they learn the core element, and then they start to do everything with only that core element technique. I really like you guys to work on thinking about how do I modify the technique if the guy has a different body structure than mine, different weapons, different grips. My primary escape route is blocked for whatever reason. Start to open up your mind. Get off once a little kid has training wheels on his bicycle, once he knows how to ride the bike competently and has good balance, the parents take the training wheels off the bicycle. So a lot of my training through comparisons course idea is for you to recognize when you don't need the training wheels anymore and start to explore other ways to move. Okay, thank you guys. Train hard, but train smart.